They laughed at him, a YouTuber, calling out fighters, stepping into a sport built on blood, sweat, and tradition. To boxing purists, it was an insult. To the media, it was a circus. But to Jake Paul, it was a challenge. And in a few short years, that challenge would evolve into one of the most shocking, divisive, and game-changing journeys the sport has ever seen. This is the rise of Jake Paul. Long before the lights of Madison Square Garden, before the chants, the boos, the multi-million-dollar paydays, Jake Paul was just another internet kid chasing attention. He came from the world of pranks, chaos, and controversy. From Vine to YouTube, he learned how to capture eyes, how to make people react, and more importantly, how to make them talk. When Jake stepped into boxing, most assumed it was another stunt, a headline to feed the algorithm. But they underestimated one thing: his obsession. Because behind the chaos, Jake had something real: hunger. When he walked into a boxing gym the first time, trainers laughed. They thought he'd quit within a week. Instead, he came back the next morning, and the next, and the next. What started as a gimmick slowly became a grind. The transformation began with the fundamentals: hours of footwork, repetition, and punishment. He sparred with real fighters, took real punches, and learned what it meant to earn respect in a world that didn't want to give him any. He wasn't just learning how to box, he was learning how to belong. He began shedding his YouTube image and building something new: discipline. When you strip away the noise, the trash talk, the bravado, the chaos, what's left is a kid who refused to accept what everyone told him he couldn't do. And that refusal would soon explode onto the world stage. A slow-motion knockout, gloves raised, crowd screaming. The moment it all changed. Jake's first real taste of boxing fame came in 2020 when he knocked out former NBA star Nate Robinson. The internet erupted. Memes, reactions, headlines. Everyone had an opinion. To boxing fans, it was a joke. To Jake, it was validation. He had trained, executed, and delivered a viral knockout under pressure. Then came Ben Askren, a former MMA world champion. Critics called it another circus act, another mismatch. Jake didn't care. When he stopped Askren in the first round, the laughter got quieter. For the first time, fans realized this wasn't a fluke. Jake Paul had power, timing, composure. He wasn't just pretending anymore. But hate is a strange fuel. The more people doubted him, the stronger he became. Every tweet calling him a fraud was another reason to train harder. Every headline calling him a clown was another round in the gym. By the time he faced Tyron Woodley, a former UFC champion, Jake wasn't chasing acceptance anymore, he was chasing legacy. When he flattened Woodley with a single right hand, the clip went viral instantly. Millions of views in minutes. That punch wasn't just a knockout, it was a message. I told you. Training montage, sweat dripping, heavy bag echoes. They said he'd never make it this far. Promoters could no longer ignore him. Jake wasn't just pulling numbers, he was pulling new audiences. Young fans who had never bought a boxing pay-per-view before were tuning in. Sponsors, broadcasters, and even established fighters started to realize something. Jake Paul wasn't destroying boxing. He was reviving it in his own way. Every time he stepped into the ring, attention followed. But attention comes with enemies. Boxing traditionalists accused him of buying legitimacy, cherry-picking opponents, and mocking a sacred sport. Yet the numbers didn't lie. Jake Paul was generating more buzz than most world champions. He had become the sport's most polarizing figure, a self-made villain with superstar appeal. Then came the test everyone demanded: a real boxer. Tommy Fury, younger brother of heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, became the measuring stick. This was no YouTuber or retired MMA fighter. This was a boxer born into the sport. The buildup was chaotic. Trash talk, postponements, doubted contracts. But when the fight finally happened, Jake stepped into the ring as the underdog once again. The result? A split decision loss. Jake's first. The internet celebrated. Critics said the bubble had burst. But Jake? He saw it differently. For him, the loss was evolution.
In his words, "I didn't lose, I learned." And that mindset changed everything. After Fury, Jake didn't disappear. He doubled down. He founded Most Valuable Promotions, signing real fighters, including women's boxing superstar Amanda Serrano, and pushing for equal pay and visibility in the sport. He wasn't just talking about change anymore. He was building it. Under his banner, Serrano headlined Madison Square Garden, something women's boxing had rarely achieved before. Jake stood in the background that night not as a showman, but as a businessman, watching his vision come to life. The villain was becoming a visionary. Fans screaming, cameras flashing, from YouTuber to headline draw. By now, the world didn't know what to do with Jake Paul. Was he a boxer, a businessman, a disruptor? He was all of them. He had forced the sport to confront its own stagnation, to realize that charisma, storytelling, and risk were what boxing had been missing for years. Because while promoters recycled the same names, Jake Paul built new narratives. While networks argued over numbers, Jake brought millions of new eyes to the screen. While fighters complained about pay, Jake wrote checks that proved what was possible. He wasn't just playing the game, he was rewriting it. By 2024, Jake Paul was no longer a novelty. He was a name. He had beaten legitimate strikers, sparred with world-class professionals, and continued calling out bigger challenges. Yet respect in boxing is a slow currency. Many still refuse to give it to him. But Jake didn't need their approval because he had already earned something more powerful: relevance. In an age where attention is everything, Jake Paul made boxing matter again, the people who had stopped caring. Every decision Jake made, every fight, every call-out, every moment of chaos was part of a strategy. He wasn't just chasing belts, he was building a brand, an empire, and a new blueprint for athlete entrepreneurs. He leveraged controversy like a weapon. He understood that being hated was sometimes more valuable than being loved. He turned boos into buy rates, critics into content, and doubt into dominance. Now, as he prepares for fights like the upcoming showdown with Gervonta Tank Davis, Jake stands as one of boxing's biggest talking points. Not the most spilled, not the most experienced, but undeniably one of the most influential. He has forced the sport to evolve, to merge entertainment and athleticism in a way few ever dared to. For better or worse, Jake Paul has changed what it means to be a fighter. A single still of Jake Paul, gloves down, staring into the camera. He started as a YouTuber. They said he didn't belong. They said he'd quit when it got real. But here he is, battle-tested, bloodied, and unbroken. Jake Paul isn't fighting to prove the world wrong anymore. He's fighting because it's the only thing that makes him feel alive. Every era has its disruptor, a figure who refuses to follow the script. For boxing, that figure isn't a traditional champion. It's a rebel with a camera, a fighter with a fan base, a villain who learned to thrive off hate.